Okay, so this is our first Region Captain, District Captain monthly call, and this call is intended to be kind of an update on all the things that have happened and are happening, as well as an opportunity for problem solving, and just discussing whatever is on anybody's mind. I think we got a good thing to report on the last weekend with the gun show. Ed, you want to give a little quick update on that?
Yes, I apologize. I told you I was going to send out a summary and glue it to the spreadsheet that I started a few weeks ago, but I didn't get around to it yet. Anyway, we had 89 signatures out of total traffic of something like 2,100 attendees, I think was about the right number. And out of the 89, 5 volunteered. As I promised, I'm going to send them a thank you note, each one that did volunteer, as I did after the show in November.
Okay.
And, so it wasn't what we had hoped for, but between the smaller attendance level compared to last March, and the fact that I think we had 3 people on the sick list and one who was overcome by events. So Lowell wasn't able to make it Sunday, nor was Dale Hensley. Bob Glasscock helped us on Saturday and then had to leave early on Sunday due to pain in his leg and back.
Oh, okay.
I called him the next day. He was feeling a little better, but it's going to take time. And then Betsy Hendricks was going to work with us Sunday afternoon and let me know that she would only be able to spend a couple of hours because she was taking care of a grandchild. And then I think she called us while we were there and said she wasn't going to make it at all. So anyway, the part where it probably hurt the most was Saturday morning. That's of the 2 days. Saturday has the bigger gate, and it's like radio club sales that I've done for years. If you got a 2-day affair, probably 2/3 of your business is going to be from when it opens till about 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the first day. So the downside was that we had quite a bit of traffic, but there just weren't enough people. A lot of folks got by us, and once they knew they were there, they walked by and their heads cranked sharply to the left as they pass in review. So
yeah. So one of the good things that I think this kind of illustrates is the importance of when we have an event to have as many volunteers there as we can, because the number of volunteers you have there really is going to determine your opportunity to get face to face with people and talk about what we're doing. Wow, I see we got a few more people tuning in. That's great. Welcome, Melba and Gary, and so yeah. What other lessons did you take from this gun show, Ed? Anything else you feel like you learned new that we didn't know before?
No, I guess. Well, yeah, I did. It seems to me, and maybe George can corroborate this from the time he spent, it seemed like a few more people out of the whole crowd had at least heard of the Convention of States. And we saw a little bit of that last November, but this time there were a few more. And I don't know if it's because they had attended other gun shows when we were present, but I've heard a number of people say that, and maybe they're hearing it on radio or on podcasts. I'm not sure, but that was encouraging.
Okay.
The other thing is I need to have a better response when people tell you, yeah, they've heard of it, yeah, I've signed a petition, and they say it so fast, you know they're probably lying. And maybe I should be happy to talk to the ones who do slow down and take the time to at least listen to what we have to say. And there was one fellow who was pretty much dead set against it, and I bet we talked for 10 minutes. And in my opinion, he was on our side, but he could not let himself sign this. I finally talked him into taking some literature and said, you sound like you might be closer to us than you realize. Would you go ahead and do some reading? And he said he would. So,
Okay.
So there's no substitute for the paper in your hand with a name and address and a signature on it.
Yeah. Did you find that it was still beneficial to have two tables even without as many volunteers there?
Yeah, there were a few times, even on Sunday, when people would come by in groups of 2 or 3, and I do recall at least one point where there were 3 people signing at once. So
okay.
with the risers you gave me to pick up the table 6 inches and the box-shaped riser that I've been using, there were 1 or 2 points there where we had people busy at 3 positions. So yeah, even though it was another $50, it was probably worth it. And that's another metric that I thought of. In this case, since we had 89 people and it cost us $100, it was, you know, about $1.10 or $1.12 per signature. And obviously, we want to shoot for a better price. So it's going to mean volunteers, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one of the things, too, that I think you can learn from this, and that is that the people who are unalterably opposed, usually it's not valuable to spend too much time with those people because typically they're not going to change their mind, and oftentimes you're better off to just, look for another prospect, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, I won't argue that point. It's sometimes you just have to know when to stop the conversation and let them go.
Yeah. Moving on a little bit. Anybody else have anything that is planned in the next, say, 60 days?
This is George. To add to Ed, Ed, you were talking about other gun shows or other people that are organizing gun shows. One in Auburn, I remember you talked about.
Yes, that was promoted, I think, by Gunslingers, and then Monday Gary sent me a list of all the shows. I haven't had time to winnow down through it, but you can get a feel for which promoters are putting them on and which shows are within a reasonable driving distance of Region 3. So I'm not sure how many of these we want to do. My sense is, at least from watching the one in Fort Wayne, that as the weather gets nicer, the attendance is probably lower than it is for the March show. And part of this will probably be communicating with people who have been to other shows. For example, Vicky's brother is going to the one in Indianapolis this coming weekend just because he knows it draws a larger crowd and it will be more worth his while. And since he lives, I think, somewhere out near Roanoke, he's probably a little closer to it than we are, and certainly closer than you are.
I checked up in the one that used to be in Napanee is moved to Plymouth, and so I'm hoping to get with Richard and see if he wants to try to get a table there because that would be kind of new ground, and I understand people have told me that Napanee gun show is very well attended. At least it was when it was in Napanee, and I assume they're moving to a bigger venue in Plymouth. So I'm thinking that might be one we want to look at, and it's coming up, I think, toward the end of March, or maybe it's in April, but it's not too far out.
Okay, that's good intel.
There was a problem with financing too, I understand. we need to find out what's going on there with National.
Yeah, I don't think that was a national problem, but anyway, I think that was me dropping the ball because I could not find the email where I had sent that to him. So anyway.
Were you able to see the copy of the application that I
Yep,
sent?
and I looked it up on my computer, and I had it on my computer where I had saved it, but I know I remember writing the email to forward it on, but I must have not sent it or something because I have it, on my computer. So I know I remembered you sending it to me, but anyway. So, what other issues you guys want to talk about? Are there training things that we should talk about, or challenges we're facing? What else is on anybody's mind?
Gary, this is Melba. Could you please tell me who is doing the show in Indianapolis this weekend?
You wanted to know what about it?
Who is having the show in Indianapolis this weekend? Who is hosting the gun show?
Just a moment, and I will tell you. Matter of fact, I think if let me see if I can get that. I'll share my screen with you if I can pull that up. And
the district captain who's having the show?
Oh, no, we don't have anybody going down to the Indy 1500.
Oh, okay.
Melba, this is Ed. Larry Hudson and I exchanged a couple of emails after he saw the photographs of our show, so I don't know if he is thinking of doing the next one or not. You might ask him.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you guys see my screen? The
Yes.
NIGCA Plymouth Gun Show.
Yeah.
So up at the top of that, if you could see the email or the address in the bar there, it's gunshowtrader.com. If you go to gunshowtrader.com and click on Indiana, it shows every gun show coming up in the state of Indiana for the rest of the year. And in fact, let me try flipping back to that.
Yeah, it showed the gun show in Plymouth at March 28th.
Yeah, March 28th. I don't know if we can get in there that soon or not. Try something here. All these upcoming gun shows, if you see on the right side of my screen there, some of them are Gunslinger Promotions. Another one's Central Indiana Gun Shows. The FOP Lodge 143, and then Sport Shows Promotions. There are several companies that sponsor multiple gun shows. And as you can see, the one in Plymouth, for example, it's only $25 for a table. And so if you go to this gunshowtrader.com, you can find all the gun shows and find out who the sponsor is and apply for, contact them to get information on sponsoring a gun show table. There is one or two of the sponsors who have said they will not let convention estates in because they don't want anything that they perceive to be political. So we may just, not much we can do about that if they don't want to let us in. But anybody else, we should try to get tables if we can. And of course, in Fort Wayne, we've got a number of people that have volunteered at these gun shows who are not far from Indiana or not far from Fort Wayne or right in the Fort Wayne area. If you're going to be in a further out area, that's where you need to really get on the phone with anybody in your district who has said they will volunteer and just start making phone calls and ask them if they'll come and spend a couple hours at the gun show. Other questions, comments?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Gary, it's Melba again. You said that we should reach out to the volunteers in our area to see if they can help us manage the control. But I guess I'm wondering, like, for myself, for example, when Larry and I went to the Kokomo Gun Show, I mean, not only did we call our volunteers, but we found it very helpful to call on volunteers from around the Kokomo area. But for that, someone would have to give us access to the COS supporters in that area. So I've also had a table at the Indianapolis Gun Show in September or August of 2 years ago. But I don't have access to that region. You know, it would be very helpful to be able to call the people that support COS and live close by.
Right. George, can you give people access to additional House District supporters?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can. Dale has always done that before. It's just a matter of setting their permissions as far as what districts.
Okay.
So, you know, it could be done on a temporary basis and then changed back or whatever. Yeah, but it shouldn't be a problem.
Melba, if you want to figure out what House districts you want access to, then contact Dale, and he should be able to set those up for you. Right. I think he may have done that for Larry Hudson.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that'll open up your opportunities to contact potential volunteers.
Yeah, I've done that in the past. I was just putting that idea out there for other people if they're struggling with finding volunteers.
Yeah, good idea. So, Richard, you weren't on when I first mentioned this, but the Napanee Gun Show is moving to Plymouth, and that's coming up really soon. Unfortunately, that might not give us time to organize, but they will be, I expect, having additional gun shows there in the future. If you can get some volunteers there, or, you know, maybe we can get some folks from over more in Region 3 to head over and help you out with the gun show if you want to try and get a table or a couple tables for one of those.
Well, I just sent the person an email. I didn't see this gun show information earlier, so we'll wait on a response for that. I will talk with the post office to see if I can get that day off because it is a work day for me. I'll see if I can get a day of vacation. And I'll reach out to volunteers in House District 17 to see what we can get. Okay.
Let me know how it goes because I don't want to volunteer for anybody else, but I know that some of the folks, you know, other folks on this call have come to gun shows here at Fort Wayne, and so we might be able to organize some help for you over there too.
All right. Well, I have a banner and I have plenty of materials that George had given me when I did this in Mishawaka. So.
Okay.
The only thing I would need would be like a convention stage tablecloth. That'd be nice.
I think what Ed wound up doing was having his wife actually made one. I've got another banner that Larry Hudson provided for me that could probably be used as a tablecloth. It's or a table skirt. It's more of a fabric banner rather than that vinyl, so it might work pretty well for that. Typically, those are only 6 feet long, though, and the tables are 8 feet, so it would be a little short, but anyway, maybe it would give us something to work with. Another thing I wanted to kick out is any of you who would like to would be open to volunteer to mentor a new district captain. We have a need for mentors. If you go onto Slack, Paul Phillips created a little training video to guide mentors. It's mostly a matter of making a weekly call to the person who's the trainee and just kind of following up with them to keep them on track, answer questions they may have, and help keep them moving along through the training process so that they finish up in a reasonably promptly. What other things are on your mind?
I think I've mentioned to you, Gary, and probably George, that we have kicked around the idea of the Allen County, Indiana Fair. I just mentioned the date here. It's July 26th to August 2nd. I can't remember. I want to say the Indiana State Fair is something like the second week or the first full week in August. I don't remember how they position it. So most county fairs are going to be in the month of July, and there may be a few in the very first week of August. So if we plan on doing one, I know last summer I helped Vicki Mooring, and I think the Huntington County Fair. Do you remember, George? It seems like it was closer to the middle of July.
Yeah, I think it was. I don't remember any exact date though, but yeah, it was whatever day that big thunderstorm was.
It was a memorable fair, right? Well, one of the challenges for the Allen County Fair is that it is taking place, kind of overlaps with the summit, the Convention State Summit down in Dallas. So if you're going to go to the summit, it probably won't work for you to do the fair. But if you're not going to the summit, that would be great if any of you would be available to help support the fair. That's the challenge with the fair is it's a multi-day event and it's all day, so it requires a lot more hours of coverage than a gun show. Or ideally, we'll have a lot more hours covered than we do at a gun show in any case. So be thinking about rounding up people. If you talk to potential volunteers anytime over the next few months, that'd be a good thing to just ask them about, would you be willing to help out at the fair? Because we will need a lot of volunteers, and it's a great way to try and get people who have said they will volunteer to kind of get them connected with other people as well. Other thoughts about fairs, gun shows, other events? The other thing that I'm just going to mention again, I think it was, we talked about it recently on the state call, is that rather than having each district captain try to do newsletters, we're going to do a statewide newsletter, and if you as a district captain or region captain have something that you want to have included, you can give that to Susan Lyon. She can get that in the newsletter, and it'll go out throughout the state. So we're not going to try to duplicate effort by having each district captain do a newsletter, but have a statewide one that will go to everybody in the state that we have an active email address for.
Gary, was that decided for certain? Because I thought it was going to be discussed after our last state conference call.
We talked about that, Dale and Paul and I, on following this state call, and we decided that it would probably be best to just have a statewide newsletter and kind of take that off the plate for district captains, because it's been a real challenge for district captains for the most part to get a district newsletter out. So we feel like getting one out from the state would probably be more effective and be able to get things out on a timely basis.
And how often is this newsletter going to go out?
The plan is to have it go out monthly, and the deadline for it, I believe we're looking at having the deadline like the Friday before the state call. And then it could be, it's like during that week before. So if you have something you want to get in the newsletter, you should notify Susan like a week before the state call. Then she can get the story, the details put into the newsletter. And I think the plan is to send it out a day or two before the state call.
I mean, for me personally, what I really struggle with is national news, not so much state.
Okay.
And I don't know. And I thought we had decided that we would only do a newsletter once a quarter because people are saying they get too many emails.
I think the plan is to do it monthly. I know I've been looking, you know, I make a lot of calls to people to try to get volunteers to step up to be district captains. And one of the things I notice is almost everybody seems to be opening the email about Dale's COS Indiana Live broadcast, which is kind of interesting that, you know, that one gets a lot of people are viewing that call, or at least opening the email to see about it. And the attendance seems to be growing on that. So I'm hoping if we have some good local as well as state and maybe a national story item or two, that people will get in the habit of looking at it and want to know what's going on, so they will open it up and take a look at it. Anybody else have questions, comments, items you want to discuss?
Questions, comments? Hey, I do. I'm sitting here quietly. But I've mentioned this over Slack. Lost the gun show here for the CGI shows until next year.
Okay.
That's because they got dates that was planted in Gun Show Trader and in their calendar for the fair dates on when Wayne County has its fair.
Oh.
So they're not going to have a gun show this year. They had one January the 4th, but I was not aware that they was having one that day. So I have in this region, I see to have let's see, several in Muncie, and the ones I'm looking at is right now is Columbus. Hopefully, I can get my DC trainee through training before then.
Yeah.
And and besides that, that's all I got to say for right now. I'm just sitting here, just listening.
Okay, good. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Thomas is mentoring a new district captain that he has recruited, and so that's a good opportunity if you're mentoring somebody to encourage them to look at doing a gun show, and you know, planning that several months in advance, as far in advance as possible, really, because it takes some organizing to make sure you've got materials, you've got the banners, you've got means of displaying them. Ed can give you plans for a frame that will hold banners if you want to use that. Make sure you've got, buttons, flyers, cards to hand people, all those things, as well as getting people on the schedule who will commit to being there. Ideally, I would like to have, like to see people have 3 or 4 volunteers there during a gun show, because there's usually enough traffic walking by that you can be, engaging in that many conversations with people, and have room for people to sign if you have 2 tables, if people, once they've agreed to sign the petition, and lots of people do. So going around, if you haven't spoken, Gary Spielman, you have any questions, comments, things you'd like to bring up for discussion? Or anybody else?
Gary, I would be interested in knowing if anybody came up with an objection where you had someone tell you that they don't think that Congress will follow any of the amendments that are proposed and ratified by in the convention. I'd like to know how they handled that particular objection.
Okay. Ed or George, you have any thoughts about how you would handle that objection? You guys have probably heard most of them.
I usually tell them that Congress isn't paying attention to the amendments we've got. So there would be no harm done in passing a few more, but the answer is to turn over the government by term limits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good, because if we do get term limits, why, some of those people that don't want to follow the Constitution will hopefully be gone soon.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'd like to add into that. A lot of people argue that elections are the term limits are already in place. So you need to be prepared to explain to them that, well, we do have elections, but then also you have, big money coming in from donors out of state and everything else, controlling your elected officials, and then screwing around with everything. That's how we get our Nancy Pelosi's, our Chuck Schumers, and our Mitch McConnells, and McCain, and everyone else that spends their whole lives becoming multimillionaires, manipulating the government and acting like rulers over we the people who they think they govern. That is one of the biggest things that we need to get out to everyone else. I mean, if they want to walk around and be treated like sheep, then so be it. But I think what we need to do is we need to get to them as an individual and say, hey, free to be free. Have you ever heard of that? What does freedom mean to you? And turn it around to them. And then when they start talking about, well, my freedom, my choice, my wants, get off my back, let me live my life, and then say, well, there you go. Fiscal restraint, balanced budget, term limits. Listen, get them to answer the questions, that they have to us. Get them to answer them themselves, and then they'll realize, well, hey, wait a minute. You're right.
Good.
Yeah, I usually also tell people that the advantage is always to the incumbent. Right now, the only example I can think of is the franking privilege, which allows them to send mailings for free. But if you're at the federal level, I don't know if you're restricted to sending mailings to just your state or anyone who your party thinks might benefit or might help you with your reelection campaign. But the the advantage being with the incumbent is added to the special money, and that is one of the changes we've seen, at least in terms of the amount of money in our own lifetimes. Nobody's going to put money in the pocket of somebody who is running for office, although they might fund the campaign. But it's once you're there that the money comes in. So in addition to term limits, I don't know how you do this, but I really think that we have to find some way either to limit the amount of money that special interests, and this mostly comes from industry. It's what we call white collar welfare, whether you're in the banking business or the defense industry or steel or big automobile or what have you. There ought to be a way to show how much money goes to each one of these people in Congress and who is sending it. And then, of course, there's a secondary problem. A lot of these people that want money to go to a particular office holder use shadow organizations. We know from following him for years that George Soros supports something like a little over 200 organizations in this country, all who are allied with the far left. And some of their names sound very patriotic, and unless you go to the website and read, you have no idea what they do, but they find a way to get money to the incumbents as well.
Yeah.
It's a multi-level problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fundamentally, if we can shrink the size of government, then the need to lobby and buy legislators will hopefully go down. And if they turn over more quickly, then maybe there'll be some help for that problem. But it's definitely not a magic bullet that's going to solve every problem. But we have to we have to take the steps that we can to solve the problem. Anyone else have comments?
Hey, Gary. Yeah, Gary.
Gary.
This is Gary Spielman. Sorry, I had you on mute, and I couldn't get you unmuted fast enough. So, no, I didn't really have anything specific for the group. Just that, I was able to get a hold of, at least call everyone that was in my district. Out of everyone that I called, I got one that was willing to volunteer. So I guess one's a start. So I'll work with that and try to expand. Good. So has there been any talk about the Noble County Fair, which is in early mid-July?
I don't think so. That would be another one. Why don't you see if you can get the details about that, and let's take a look at it.
Okay.
Find out when it is. One of the challenges we had, we were going to do the Allen County Fair last year, but it was at the same time as the Huntington County Fair, and I'm afraid some of these county fair, or a lot of these county fairs may overlap. But if the Noble County is earlier than the Allen County, then that would be a good one for us to target.
Okay, I'll give them a call. I got them on my speed dial. I can find out.
Okay. And again, we can, that's close to this area. We should be able to help you out with volunteers and maybe open up some other areas here that you could, we could make calls into, or you could make calls into additional districts to try to get volunteers, because that'll be one that'll be a fair challenge, is getting, volunteers to cover 4 or 5 days.
Right. Yeah, that will be a challenge. I agree.
Yeah, we'll see. The location we had down at the Huntington County Fair was not very good. What I found out about the Allen County Fair is they have one gate through which everybody passes going in, and so getting a table there would be really good, at least as far as getting exposure. We'd want to take a look at that up in Noble County too. and see if there is a place where all the traffic, all the people come through to get into the fair. So one of the things I like about the gun shows is that they're typically just 2 days, although some of the sponsors also have Friday, do it Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The Gunslinger Productions told me that for their people who get tables there, they consider Friday optional. So we could have people there on Friday, but we don't have to. But you have a fairly confined number of hours on Saturday and Sunday. A fair is a much bigger challenge because it's open so many more hours.
Right.
But even if we couldn't cover all the hours, we can have a table there, and if we've got a banner up and some literature out that people can pick up, that could still help us spread the word, even if we don't necessarily have somebody covering it all the hours. Well, it is about 8:45. I want to wrap up here. Anything else anybody wants to say before we wrap up the call?
Gary, I'd like to make a suggestion, because you said about suggestion for the national newsletter.
Yes.
What something that I was thinking is a fairly extensive and detailed explanation of the difference between the Constitutional Convention and Convention of States, because
Okay.
I'm finding that there are people who actually supported the resolution and have signed a petition, and yet they continue to call this a constitutional convention, which drives me crazy.
Yeah.
So maybe when the newsletter goes out, you said it's going out statewide to our supporters. If we can give them enough information that if somebody should come up to them and call it a constitutional convention, they can say, no, it is, it's a convention of states and this is why.
Right.
Other than just pointing them to Article 5 in the Pocket Constitution, maybe just a few more sentences.
Didn't Nadelson do a big report on that or something?
Yeah, not only Nadelson, but Michael Ferris wrote something about it as well.
Yeah, we should try to find that and plug that into the newsletter, because that's
I think that would be really helpful. And then, at that point, if people are still calling it constitutional convention, you just hit them over the head with it.
Yeah. If you go to wiki, WIKI .conventionofstates.com, and just search for, I don't know, Constitutional Convention or something like that. Jerry Rowe put that together, and there's all kinds of articles, and there's even notes that the founders wrote during the convention and things. But that'd probably be the easiest way to find it. Yeah, wiki, WIKI .conventionofstates.com.
As a matter of fact, I think Jerry Rowe recently did a training video on how to use that, and it is a rich resource. I will look at that.
Maybe Sue Lyon can take from that and put it in her newsletter.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Okay.
Okay, well, I appreciate everybody being on here, and if there is a time that would work better for a consensus of people, I'm certainly open to moving this to make it a little later or on a different night. I'm not completely flexible on that because I have commitments, on some nights as many of you do. But if there's a consensus that we could reach, that would be a better time for the majority of people. I'd certainly be open to that. And you could go into the Slack general channel and make comments there about it, or, shoot me an email, text me, whatever, give me a call. Well, with that, I think we'll wrap up. Thank you for being here, and unless there is a reason to make a change, we'll plan to be on the second Wednesday again next month.
Okie doker. All right.
Good night, folks. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good idea.
Good night, everyone.
Oh, hey, Gary, are you still there? You gonna put this recording on Slack?
Yes.
Okay.
Got to stop the recording. If I can. Well, maybe it'll stop when I close it out.